very profound shlokas in Bhagavad Gita. So this is where, the many of the questions that Arjuna had, or many of the points that Arjuna had brought up, that the Lord is trying to address. So one of the comments was when Arjuna told the Lord that I am your disciple, please teach me. He also said, Nahi prapashyami mamapanudyat. Yachokamaccho shanamindriyanam. I don't see the way for my sorrow to come to an end. Like, so sorrow associated and which is affecting me, even my mind and senses. How can I be free from that sorrow? So here now the Lord, when he started teaching, he is giving that ultimate remedy for all sorrow. Atyantika dukkha nivritti. The ultimate cessation of all sorrow is what? The ultimate cessation of all sorrows is the knowledge of reality, is awakening to that reality. What is real and what is unreal. So this is the highest kind of way from which we can wake up to that complete freedom. So this point we discussed in the last class, where that shloka was said, Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. Ubayor api drishtontas, tvayanor tattvadashibihi. So that reality, that truth, does not have non-existence, meaning it always exists, and that non-unreality never had any existence. But as we discussed in the last class, that it appears to exist, and that is where the problem is. But those who know this, ubayoropi drishtontas, those who know this, both this real and unreal, not just knowing that what is unreal is enough, right? So we have to know what is real also. So Tvayanos Tattvadarshivih, they are called the knowers of the ultimate truth, ultimate reality. So this we went through, and we also briefly looked at the Bhashya given by Shankaracharya. So one of the key fact was what is real is that which is never negated, abhaditam. It is never proved to be wrong or proved to be non-existence. That is truth. We also say trikala abhadita. In three times, in past, present, and future, it will always be there. And of course, everywhere, sarvatra sarvada, everywhere it will be real. So from our point, how do we relate to sat and asat? So this notion, that we first start with, this is the point that many people, many philosophers have discussed. What is real? What is unreal? So right from the Charvaks, Charvaks are one of the Nastika darshanas, where the materialist, we say, can compare also to today's materialist. The idea is that what I see is real, body is real. That is the first level. Then my senses and mind. Until there is the reality. Beyond that, there is nothing. Like as long as my body, senses, mind exist, I am alive. I mean, I'm okay. I exist. Beyond this, nothing is there. So they don't have a sense of there is a consciousness which is beyond the mind. So the mind is the last point. Of course, the basic charvak is say just the body is the reality. But we go a little deeper there are higher kind of charvak darshanas. And today, if you compare it also to a more like a scientific kind of perspective, where the mind is the reality, right? And well, if that was conclusively proven by science, then we probably had to give up all Vedanta, right? But it is not conclusively proven. They are very clearly, some aspect they say we don't know, or we are yet to discover. So that question of whether or not there is a consciousness is a subject to debate. So in that thing, Vedanta doesn't have any debate. Vedanta has resolved this. And from that perspective, we can investigate. So once our starting point is from there, from that consciousness is the reality. So this question of what is truth and what is untruth, there is also a best way to illustrate is also some stories. Especially there is a saint called Swami Ramtirtha. His way of teaching Vedanta was mostly based on parables or stories. So one of the illustration he gives is there were people who were trying to figure out where water came from. So they were somewhere up in some village and the river was coming. So where does the water come from? So they kind of had a hypothesis that maybe it comes from rocks, and they gathered enough kind of information and say that it must be coming from rocks. But then somebody else came with another illustration, which is also he could prove. He says, see, what is happening? Where does liquid come? Like when we perspire, when we sweat, there is like water kind of thing, right? Liquid coming. So there must be a big giant somewhere, a huge giant somewhere, who is perspiring and all the water is coming from there. And then, of course, one more illustration also he gives of somebody saying, like, no, it is some bigger person who is spitting. So all these different kind of illustrations he comes up with. But what is the point? How do we come to that? We are basing our information based on our experiential perception. That what I see, I take, and then I deduce that. So that is the anumana. The scientific way is also mostly like that. We deduce based on the facts that I've gathered through my eyes, ears, and mind, and all that. And then based on that, I develop further, right? So today, for example, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence and all that. So that is also based on that kind of thing, right? Like what has already been deduced, you deduce based on that further. But if the basic deductions are wrong, then you are going in a completely wrong direction. So this is where, the Vedanta, he gives one more illustration where there is a inspector or a headmaster. He goes to a school. He goes to a class, and there he tells the student, he wants to see how good the students are, whether they comprehend science. So he tells them, if I drop this chalk or pen, and the weight of the pen is so much, the distance is so much. If I drop it, how long will it take to fall? So then somebody gives that thing. And where will it fall? It will fall on the ground. Similarly, a stone, then the stone's weight is so much, then they all calculate and they say, yeah, this is it. And then he's happy. Then just hypothetically, he asks, what if the whole earth were to fall? Where will it go? What will it? So then one student counter asks him the question. So you first tell me, if the earth were to fall, where will it fall? So based on that, we can deduce. So similarly, when we talk about the world, so this is where, the Vedanta, now we are coming to this shloka point, right? When we talk about the world, what is the reality of this world? On what basis have we taken the world to be real? We are taking the world to be real just based on our sense perceptions, or just based on a shared sense of reality we are having. But how do we really conclusively say this world is real? So this is where, Vedanta's approach is slightly different to the common approach. The normal approach, whether you take religions or philosophies, is based on trying to say, like how Swami Rama's another illustration was, that if there is a watch, there has to be a watchmaker. If there is a house, there has to be a house builder. So similarly, if there is a world, there has to be a builder of this world. There has to be a creator, right? So this notion which we have is based on our cause and effect. Like there is something, so there has to be a cause of something. So this is where, this kind of illustration is given just as a, if we really want in creation, then there is creation stories in Upanishads, different creation stories. But Vedanta as such doesn't take that creation stories to be the ultimate reality. So, what is the reality of this world? When we say the reality has no existence, there are non-existence, and the unreality never existed. So, which bracket does this world come in? Which bracket do you come in? Do we come in that reality or the unreality? So, when we really look at it, we this is where the best illustration Vedanta gives for this is the example of a dream. When you're dreaming, you take that to be real. But when you wake up, what has happened? The dream is gone. It was never a reality. So, similarly, the Vedanta's perspective is this, that this thing we take to be real never existed. It appears to exist, and that appearance is that play of Maya, which we call as Maya. And what is Maya? Maya is in a more detailed thing. Maya is not describable, but it appears to exist. It appears to be the creator. It appears to bring about this creation. uh, that all these things that we are perceiving and all that, just as how in our dream, we see everything. So it is that kind of an what we call as illusion, external illusion that we are perceiving. Okay, so today I will, before going into the shlokas, I will cover some of the questions which we didn't properly address, I couldn't address. The first related to this dream thing is a question that somebody had. So, first part of that question is coming out of waking up from this dream-like life, same as coming out of dream experience from my everyday sleep. So, yeah, that is the point that Vedanta is saying, right? This dream is a superimposition on our waking state, right? Like, what do we consider? We consider reality. We don't consider the dream as reality, right? We take the waking as reality. From a normal person's perspective, the waking is a reality. So, what happens? The dream is coming and going in this waking. Why? Because the dream doesn't have a continuity, but the waking life has a continuity. So I take more faith or more reality, I give more reality to my waking state. So now here is where the deeper perspective is that this waking life is like a great cosmic illusion. It's like a cosmic dream. So we try to wake up from this cosmic dream by how our waking also changes. In one life, I am this, another life, I am this. So that is happening in what? It is happening in that consciousness. So that consciousness, that ultimate substratum, that is the illustration given. Okay, but her question is something else. If I can catch hold of that moment, experience of coming out of my dream state, will that be same as when I come out of dream-like life and this unreality vanishes forever? Yeah, in a way, yes, but at the more deeper point is better than catching that point of waking where neither state is clear. Like, I think what she's referring to is like sometimes, we are in between. Just before I wake up, there is a little sense of awakefulness, but yet some lingering of dream might be going on or sleep state might be going on. So that state, if I captured, can I also wake up? Can I wake up to that higher reality? So see, that is a practice, especially if you in a lot of Buddhist things and all that. It is called as lucid dreaming. More than catching that waking up state, you try through some practices to wake up in the dream itself. but not completely dissolve that dream. So the dream continues and you try to remain in that little bit of waking. So that is a practice. Now it's also a scientific practice. A lot of research has been done on that. So these are practice. But the point that here is that from our perspective of waking to that reality, so we should not try to wake up from the dream alone. We should try to wake up from this life itself. So this is where, the question should come in our life. Am I really awake in my life? In my daily life, I should come up with this question. Am I dreaming or am I awake? Huh? So what does that mean? Like we say these days, like, are you conscious? Like, are you being conscious, fully conscious? Meaning, are you completely acting out of your full intellect? So here, when the knowledge comes, when the reality comes down, even our day-to-day life, our day-to-day life constantly that jnani or yogi has this question, is this real? Am I dreaming here? Meaning, am I actually going through the real reality of life, or is it just like a waking up where I'm also caught up in a sense of unreality, a reality I've given to something which is not real? So this is a grave. This is one of the fastest way to awaken us to truth and be free from all sorrows, whatever problems we are going through. This is one of the greatest ways to remind us that this life or this waking state I'm going through is not the ultimate reality. This is also experiences are coming and going. One after another, one experience is coming and going. None of these experiences are for real. So how do we come to that? So that is where, our third point is that is there a method practice to cling on to that experience? So this is where, we all fall into the trap. So the whole process is, we are all caught up in this thing of practice. This is where, the whole teachings where Shankaracharya talks about the fundamental difference between karma and jnana. He says karma and jnana cannot go together. So we are ingrained with a deep-seated notion that if I do this, I will get that. Like if, for example, if you are making idlis or Western version of bread, you need that dough to rise, right? That yeast has to come. So if it is not coming, then you try different methods. If I try this method, it will come. That method, it will come. So our idea is that if I get that formula right, if I figure out the conditions and somehow practice it correctly, I will have a good result. Many bakeries and many restaurants have perfected this, right? How to make the perfect uh, dosas and bread and all that, batter and all that. So we think that even consciousness is like that. We can wake up if we figure out the exact practice, the exact method. Huh? So this is where, the practice here is not going to wake you up. The practice will give you another experience. So even that, there is a kind of an experiential sense of awakening. So that is also accepted in non-duality. Especially there are teachers like Ramana Maharshi and all that who have made that part of practice also important. So there is an experiential sense I get when something I do, some practices I do, something, and then I come to some kind of an experiential state. But see, that is an experience that will also go. None of those experiences will stay forever. So the real thing that helps us to stabilize in this is knowledge, wisdom, a clear knowledge. So in order for that knowledge to become clear, you can do practices with the mind so that the mind is pure, the mind is calm, the mind is able to absorb that. But that knowledge, that wisdom, that wisdom cannot be, is not a practice as such. So this is where, like even when we talk about waking up from the dream, so that the experience might give you conviction. If you wake up from a dream sometimes and you experience that lucidity, you might see that, oh yeah, this is a dream and I'm awake in this dream. So similarly, in our life, sometimes we may have some experience where we may feel that things are happening in my life, but I suddenly kind of feel I'm awake, I'm untouched by that. So some sense of strong sense of abiding in that awareness. So, but for most people, that abiding doesn't last for long. Why? Because there, that mind, two things. There is no purity in that mind, meaning that mind is still based on samskaras, kleshas. They are so strong in the mind. And the second most important aspect, and that is the approach of Vedanta, is that knowledge is not established. The jnana nishtha has not happened. So this is where for us, most of us sadhakas, the balance is required. Yoga talks about practice. What is the practice helpful? The practice is helpful so that our mind is free of all these kleshas and vasanas. And the Vedanta talks about knowledge as in listening, hearing to the truth again and again and again. So there what happens, that knowledge becomes stronger, deeper. So the as many times as we hear that impression of what is real gets stronger and what is unreal will fade away. So this is the thing. How do we come to this thing of reality is through mostly through neti neti. Not this, not this. Because all of things that has happened is a superimposition. Now we have superimposed on ourselves this idea of body, mind, indriyas and all that. Okay, so I will, this is a question related to this. Now there is two more questions which I will just go. And one is okay, this is the question which was there. Was not able to answer this the other time. Can we say that Jiva is universal consciousness limited by upadhi of ignorance? And Ishvara is the universal consciousness limited by upadhi of Maya, or is it oversimplistic? So we can take it like that. We can say that the Jiva is that Chaitanya, that Shuddha Chaitanya of Brahman, which through that limited adjunct of body and mind, through avidya, gets identified as the body and mind. It becomes the Jiva. And the Ishvara is that same Brahman who is limited by upadhi. uh, But if is the point I could not answer this before is because it is true, this thing we cannot deny, but yet it is true, as you say, it is a bit simplistic. So why is this simplistic? Is the see, this is where again, going back to that illustrations that Swami Rama gives. He gives two illustrations. One, or he talks about this thing called what is called as extrinsic illusion and intrinsic illusion. From Vedanta, this extrinsic illusion is Maya, and this intrinsic illusion is avidya. Huh? So he says that this, in order to deal with this extrinsic illusion, lot of religions, lot of philosophies are there. Hmm? So the overcoming the Maya is a big thing. In fact, in later shlokas, Bhagavan says that, Devi Vyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. My Maya is very difficult to cross because it is made of these three gunas. Mame va ye prapadyante Maya metam tarantite. The one who can cross over this Maya is the one who takes complete refuge in me. So here, this is where again the Lord is trying to point out the importance of bhakti or other upasana. So all religions are having to take refuge in some god or some form of practice or some kind of a faith is necessary to overcome the worldly problems. So when we have a lot of problems, when somebody close to you dies or you lose something, or if something happens to your own body, what is the refuge? We need refuge in some God or some faith or some teaching, right? But from our Vedanta perspective, there is a step further. Why did this come in the first place? This came in the first place because there is this ajnana avastha. This ignorance is there. This ignorance is the one which sets up the relationship with Ishvara or Bhagavan. So even this thing of relationship with Bhagavan. So here is also where different Dvaita Vedanta and Advaita Vedanta differs. Uh, Dvaita Vedanta stops there and says this relationship is good enough because Jiva will always be Jiva. And the Bhagavan, the Lord Ishvara, will always be Ishvara. There is no kind of oneness there. So here is this is the point here, when we talk about Jiva, of course, for a simplistic version, we say, what is Jiva? Jiva is that Shukshma, that Chaitanya in that Sukshma Sharira, that Atma, when it comes through that subtle body, it is that Jiva. But Jiva, there is a little more thing. What is Jiva? Is that pure consciousness, that pure consciousness, when it reflects through a mirror. What happens, like as when a light reflects through a mirror, or a face seen in a mirror, you seen as separate, right? So here that consciousness is actually, first there is pure consciousness. Then there is the reflection of consciousness in that mirror. And where is it reflecting? On that mirror. So what are these three things? So consciousness, then there is the antakarana, what we call sukshma sharira, and there is a reflection of consciousness. So this is what a jiva is in that sense. A jiva, in a more subtle form, is this reflection of consciousness. Like if my face is seen in that mirror, that reflection in that mirror is that jiva. Chidabhasa from a Vedantic point of view. But the Jiva, why does it happen? Because there is that Sukshma Sharira or the Antakarana, that mirror, that mind or the intellect, that is the mirror. In that mirror, that reflection is happening. So that what has happened here, that pure consciousness got reflected in that mirror and it is coming as something else now, or it is not coming as something else, it is coming as a reflection only, but it is not the pure consciousness in its pure essence. So that is the jiva. Now why has all this happened? Because this ajnana is caused that reflection to happen, and now there is that imposition. It has taken the upadhi, or it has taken the form because of that subtle body. That subtle body has given it the form. So in that sense, this reflection, which is caused, is that pure consciousness. Now with Ishvara or the Lord, it is a little slightly different. The Lord doesn't have a reflection, but the Lord is on its own will taken on Maya, associated with Maya. We are bound by Maya. The Lord controls the Maya. So there, that pure consciousness is not necessarily limited. That pure consciousness is actually appearing as Ishvara, which is associated with Maya. So it is not, we can say upadhi, we say upadhi for the sake of definition. But it is not the same as upadhi when we talk about jiva. The jiva's upadhi is not a conscious one. It has happened out of ignorance. The Lord's upadhi is a conscious one. So we can say this is correct, but yet in a more deeper way, this Ishvara and Jiva is actually, there is no relationship in that sense. How can you be related to yourself, right? So the ignorance and the Maya seems to uh, superimpose this relationship between the individual and God. And so the how is what is the way? The way of the religions is you first take refuge in their extrinsic form. But the Vedanta's way is you first come to the reality of yourself. You understand who you really are, the truth of yourself. When you come to the truth of yourself, then automatically you drop that Maya. You are no longer bound by Maya. So, in fact, in the same thing, what the other person was saying, how do you wake up from a dream? From a Vedanta perspective, you don't wake up from a dream through a practice, right? You wake up in that life itself, and that lucidity is called as Jivan Mukta Avastha. huh? That state where in this life, as you are living in this life, you are free in that sense. You are conscious in this cosmic dream. Okay, I have gone quite a bit, so I don't know whether I can do any questions on this. There is one more point which I didn't cover actually, that I think this was, I think, Flavia had asked her. The I think we did last time, right? The nature of happiness and suffering doesn't change. But if it doesn't change and isn't pure Atma, then what is it? So yeah, so happiness and sadness doesn't change in its essential Swarupa. And if you really take it, even cold and heat doesn't change in its essential essence. But what happens is that cold and heat, what he gives in the other shloka, is relative in degree and experienced in different way by different people. Like something which is cold to one person may not be cold. This is why it is, right? Like if you go into a room, somebody will say, put on the AC. Somebody will say, don't put on the AC. Somebody will say, open the fan. So because the different experiences are there. But happiness and sadness in its own essence experienced by the mind, that it's actually is experienced by the mind, and it is happiness only. It's not like somebody who is experiencing happiness is sadness for that person. That happiness experienced, if someone's experiencing happiness, it is happiness only. But here is a slight catch. As you mentioned, which I think I didn't cover. You say if it doesn't change and it isn't pure Atma. So why is happiness and sadness not pure Atma? Because happiness and sadness is an experience of the mind, at least here. The real happiness which we say, Ananda, as in Satchit Ananda, that happiness is not an experience of the mind. That happiness does not come and go. Like the 14th shloka where it says, Agama Payino Nityan. All these things, happiness, sadness, cold, heat, they all come and go. So put up with it, he says, right? So here, this is a point that was mentioned, where Shankaracharya said the nature of happiness and sadness doesn't change. And it isn't Atma as such, because that experiential happiness, that one day I'm happy, another day I'm sad, or even if I experience some kind of a temporary state of peace, that also is coming and going. So what is not changing? Well, Atma is changelessness. And when that changelessness Atma, in its true nature is happiness. So that have ananda which we say, that is not an experience of that mind. It is a naturally ever experienced thing. In one of the shloka, nityopalabdhi swarupohamatma, it is ever accessible. That joy, that thing is ever accessible in that beingness, in that sense of Atma and self. So here, okay, this is also one more point. I think Kartika had asked. So this point where when we say self, Atma, so we had discussed where we said, all our raga, dvesha, everything, they're coming from the sense of Ahamkara. But what if I don't feel that sense of Ahamkara? I am going through my life experience, and then I have certain things I want to do, certain things I don't want to do. So then why are we saying this is also coming from Ahamkara? So the Ahamkara here, when we say from yoga and from Vedanta, the Asmita that yoga talks about, Vedanta talks about Ahamkara, that Ahamkara and Asmita is not like a sense of proud feeling that I am this, I am that. It is that which has come from ignorance, that avidya has created that ahankara. What we are talking here is the basic ahankara, the ahankara of a politician or a successful movie star or somebody who's doing for name and fame. That is different. That ahankara is more like an expressive egoism there. Here, that ahankara we are talking is that wrong identification of that self with even that mind or the jiva. See that thing what we were saying, the whole sense why there is jiva is because it has identified with that sukshma sharira. Huh? When that consciousness has identified with that sukshma, what has happened? That God has become the human. So, we know this is what we say, we are all gods, but we have become human. So why is God forgotten himself? Why is God doesn't remember that he has become human? There are Puranic stories where God forgets he's God and he starts becoming like normal people. Then everybody has to come wake him up. Of course, from a story perspective, that is good. But really what is happening is that God doesn't forget himself or herself. God, that state of that God, that pure nature of that God, is identified with this body. And then all this, we call it dream, but from another Vaishnavic perspective, it is lila, they say. Lila meaning it is a play. God consciously is doing this. Like we celebrated Janmashtami. So what are we really celebrating? We celebrated that Lord taking a human form as a conscious thing. He's a consciously taking that human form without losing that awareness. In all of us, what has happened? The God has taken human form, but that awareness is lost because of identification. So, this is the ahankara that has come. The ahankara is not that proud feeling that I am better than you and that kind of thing. Not necessarily. Of course, that also is an ahankara. But here, when we talk about ahankara, is a subtle misperception from the not misperception, that viparyaya, the um, mis uh, wrong construction, wrongly creating that thing, illusion that this is who am I. So that has actually landed us in this trouble. So how do we realize it? So the first realization here is reclaiming that our nature through jnana. So we may say that, but I am heard it so many times, and this is also why so many people who have studied Vedanta Shastra, they can recite all the shlokas, but still, why have they not completely realized? Because that kind of just parroting also is not knowledge. When we say jnana is superior to practice, it doesn't mean that just studying as in the worldly kind of study. That study has to become personalized through our manana practices and through our um, through constant reflection, questioning reality and unreality. Is that so? This is the point, right? That what we call as mithya. That mithya is it is appearing to be something else. That reality itself, that God itself is appearing as human, but it is mistaken to be human. So the seeming appearance, what we say is mithya. It is that which is real itself appears to be something else. Okay, Anybody of
Swami,
these questions? Yeah, Flavia.
can I
Yeah.
say something? I was after the last class. I was thinking about practicing, and
Ah,
I realized that when we practice, for example, when we learn Vedanta or we practice yoga,
Yeah.
This feeling of Ahamkara is really present. I am doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you are going through the practice and you think, oh, I am spiritual, I'm doing my task, but there in there's this feeling, I am a person and I'm doing that. And
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yes, yes, yeah. So yeah, that is where the this is that karta bhava. Huh? So that in that ego also there are different levels. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita we will study all that. Huh? The first sense of ego is that sense of doership. Huh? There is a sense I am the doer. Hmm? Kartaham ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate, the Lord will say. Huh? The person who is deluded by the ego, he thinks he's the doer. No? So that sense of doership is the first thing. Then there is a sense of enjoyership. I'm enjoying this. Or I'm suffering this. There is also a ahankara there. So see, even if somebody is from a Vedantic point, somebody is suffering physically, mentally, or whatever. If they are really suffering, especially if they're suffering mentally from that, we say it is because of ahankara the person is suffering. So here that when we do practice, the first stage is we can't directly become that completely free from ego. So it is okay to, it is like you can say a lenience is given where you can take that role that I am a sadhaka, I am a yogi, I am a thing. That at least will help you disassociate from that identity that I am a I am an actor, I am a, worker or whatever. That is good. But as we progress on the spiritual path, that also has to be relinquished. Um, So as we go deeper and deeper, and as we introspect, that sense of identification also has to drop. We, in fact, from a Vedanta point, we also say this, like, with those of us who take sannyasa and all that, we are a Swami or a teacher and all that. It is only from a reference point. But if it really goes to your head, then you should stop being that also. Meaning that, that strong identification with anything is a barrier, even from a spiritual perspective.
And this will happen naturally, no? This yes, to see it is really nice also, and to see, oh, I'm thinking that
Yeah.
I'm being spiritual, but I'm reproducing the same game.
Correct, correct. So see, like for example, like when those of us who take sannyas, there are certain things we have to follow. Then if somebody asks me why you're following, because I say I'm a sannyasi. So here, this is a relative worldly kind of utility in that identification. But if I really start thinking, because I'm a sannyasi, I'm superior, I'm better, or something, then there is a problem. So that is where your point is very good, that awareness has to be there. If that identification is for some practical worldly relative purpose, then it's okay. You can hold on to it. huh. Some sannyasis, sometimes there's other extreme of this. Yeah, some sannyasis, they don't, or not sannyas, sadhakas also. They don't want to even say their name. huh they say the speaker, this person. So of course, it is a good practice for them, but it becomes very difficult for somebody else. Who are you referring to? Huh? So there again, sometimes that ahankara, see, the play of ego is a very subtle thing, right? Nobody else will know. Only you can actually monitor what is happening. People can judge and say he's proud or he's not proud, but sometimes somebody is very proud but they are actually feigning that. Like some mahatmas I've known, they will purposely kind of say, get away, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to deal with you, and something like that. So that kind of arrogance with them is like also a purposeful one, um, in with some cases. So, yeah, good. Anybody else on some questions we covered. If anybody has on that, we can discuss, or any other. We couldn't get to the shlokas because I wanted to clarify some of the points here.
Swamiji,
Yeah,
just
yes, yeah.
yes, one question. This chitta, how clear it should be? Is there any degree, or it be completely clear, clean? Like every day, also we tend to collect so many things in our chitta, everyday
In
life
chitta,
things.
you're saying, is it?
Chitta.
Chitta,
So to attain that, to become that, or to get that consciousness knowledge, that chitta, how clear it should be. Day to day, chitta also should be clear, is it? It should be completely clear.
Oh, what is your definition of chitta? What do you mean by chitta?
So whatever we have the collection in our mind, like our
Ha,
memories, past, present, due to samskara, or whatever it is,
yeah.
even
Ah.
day to day life things, whatever is connected, day to day life, even that should be cleared to attain this consciousness, to become conscious.
No, see, this is where again, we have to see from which perspective we are talking. If we are talking from the yoga darshan perspective, yeah, it has to be completely still. We say chitta vritti nirodha. So there, that chitta has to become completely purified, and not just purified, that last lesha, or that last vidya also in that sense has to go. So there, that purification is through practice. That chitta, what you are talking about, from this the yoga perspective. Hmm. So
Okay.
there, that kind of, if you're resorting to that practice, then that practice has to make it completely pure. When that complete purity happens and it reaches that state of samadhi where no samskara can ever distort it from that samadhi, then you will stabilize in tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. You will establish in yourself, in consciousness, in purusha. So that is the yogic approach.
Oh,
So,
okay.
huh.
Vedanta, it doesn't say like that.
Vedanta doesn't say that you need the chitta to completely be pure, because they say that samskaras is for lifetimes, and you have to do so many kind of good samskaras, good practices to erase that. Hmm? So that erasing of that samskaras happens over a long, prolonged practice. Huh? So here, what is the way Vedanta is saying is that we discussed, I think, last class only we discussed this. You have to come to that point where manobuddhi ahankara chitta ninaham, as Shankaracharya says. You have to completely disassociate with that chitta and ahankara and manas and buddhi. Huh? So none
Okay.
of this is identification. So this is where I was trying to explain. How did that jiva become jiva? When that jiva when that pure consciousness reflected in that chitta or the manas buddhi ankara of that jiva, then it become that jiva, that sukshma, that identification. So how does that identification break? That identification breaks when you no longer recognize with it. Otherwise, what happens? That chitta will cause you to go life after life, right? That storage of karma samskaras is there.
Uh,
So that storage
okay.
of karma samskara will make you. So when you disidentify, complete, realized, and abiding in that knowledge is like the where that shloka comes. Vidyate hridaya ganti, chidyante sarva shamshayaha. Shiyante chasya karmani tasmin drashte paravare. When you see that reality, tasmin drashte paravare, when you see that that reality is non-different from you, huh? Then all
Okay.
this will happen. All the vidyate, all the granthis will break. So
Okay.
there it is not just practice will one day break it for you. That when that knowledge gets, you can say there is the jnana abhyasa. There is a practice of knowledge which we are doing now, like Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. We may say that is also a practice. How is this different from that practice? This also is cleaning up the samskara. So this is where, the both yoga and Vedanta are required, where that antakarana shuddhi has to happen for us to speeden up the knowledge. If that antakarana shuddhi hasn't happened, that knowledge will not uh, happen faster. It will happen very slow. Huh? But if that purity, that antakarana shuddhi has happened, and that is where Vedanta accepts all the practices, including the taking upasanas, praying to God, japa, mantra, dhyana, all that.
So Chitta Shuddhi is a must then.
Chitta Shuddhi is a must, but not in the sense that you're talking.
Okay. So it's not over the collection of over the things. I need not to think about it. I should just cessation. I should get. That's it.
Ha ha. So you are way because there is some Chitta Shuddhi, you have an interest to listen. Huh? But of course, that some more Chitta Shuddhi will happen naturally as you're listening and practicing also. Huh? So the
Okay.
knowledge itself will also purify. How this is the way the shloka is saying. When you know what is real from unreal, slowly you stop
Ah,
grasping at the unreal, or
okay.
you will no longer run away from that which is unreal. Like when you see that snake in a rope, when you know it is a rope, you will not run away. Huh?
Okay. Okay.
So that is the purifying aspect of that knowledge is also there. Both are there. Some purification is a qualification for study of Vedanta. Some purification is the process of knowledge. Uh, When you're
Mm.
listening, contemplating, there is also purification happening. So both ways the purification is happening. So we can say the only difference here is you don't have to wait until all the purification has happened. Mhm.
Oh, I'm relieved. Okay.
Huh?
Wonderful. I'm relieved. I said.
Otherwise, yeah, we're all relieved. Otherwise, all of us will have more lifetimes, to
Thank you, Swami. Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Okay.
Swamiji, Pranam, Mihir here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I we discussed about I mean being present and stuff like that. Like waking state is not like none of these experiences are real, and so sometimes in this day and age, like we have a problem of being present. How do we address that in day to day life? Like we're we're not present where we are. We're sometimes on our phones, sometimes on uh, other distractions. Just that. Thank you.
Yeah, so that is true. That is what, we many times say we are not conscious, we are lost somewhere. We have to make that habit of, so that is a helpful practices. We have to remind ourselves. We have to, come to that point and understand that if I'm not present, what kind of actions I do. So this again is based on that practices. So it is good. It is nothing wrong with that. But higher way is what we are talking about. The higher way is that you realize that sense of grasping to things which is ephemeral, meaning things that are constantly changing. We are grasping onto that or we're running away from that. So, from a more fundamental way, why are we not present to our life? Because we are lost in that. We are deluded. What is real? What is unreal? But at a more fundamental point, even this thing of present, this is not actually the Vedantic practice. That thing of being in the present moment and all that, that is a subsidiary practice that has come over the times, like Buddhism, Vedanta, and others. Many people have come up with these practices, so that is okay. So these are helpful practices for reminding ourselves. But inherent in that is also a desire lurking somewhere, meaning like we still have some kind of a egoic identification, egoic thing that it doesn't come from that pure place of knowledge. If it comes from a pure place of knowledge, then that practice will become faster. We can be more present naturally because we realize that this preoccupation of that mind is rooted in this egoic identification or desire. Okay. And also just a point for some of you. So especially when some of you ask questions, you should use your video. Otherwise, what happens? Firstly, I don't get the full import of your questions. And secondly, I will not be able to convey it also properly. So at least, especially when you ask questions, ideally, I would like all of you to be on the video and be as much here present in the class as much as possible. Otherwise, as you were just saying that present, that when we turn off the video is a great excuse for the mind to not be present. So, so see the Vedanta studies and all that, we would sit in our class. I've probably told this few times, when we would study with our teachers and all that, you'd have to sit alert. If you're sitting even looking a little bit, our teachers would scold us. So where's your attention gone? So here at least, we can try to have that little bit of connection. If you can, at least if you can't, if you have some valid reasons, then at least when you ask questions, can use. Okay, we are well beyond the time. Let us say our closing prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Stay. Thank you. See you.
Jai Hind.